Good evening, I am Bea Cupin and you are watching Rappler. Today is March 11, 2025 and earlier today, former President Rodrigo Duterte was arrested at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport in Manila over a warrant issued by the International Criminal Court. Duterte, Philippine president from 2016 to 2022, faces a crime against humanity case for his drug war that killed close to 30,000 people based on data from human rights groups. He is the first Philippine head of state to be arrested through an order by an international tribunal. What does this mean for the victims and survivors of his bloody drug war, for impunity in the Philippines, and what happens now moving forward? Welcome to Rappler's special coverage, the arrest of Rodrigo Duterte. Reporters Jairo, Bolledo, and Lian Buan are in Villamor Air Base to give us updates and to help us understand what's happening and what's next for the former president. With me in the studio are Rappler's head of community, Pia Ranada, digital forensics researcher Gaby Baizas, and via Zoom, we have our investigative head, Chay Hofileña. We'll also be bringing in other guests throughout this discussion. Lian Buan has covered the ICC case since its inception. She was also at NAIA earlier. Lian, can you walk us through the events of this morning?
Well, Bea, it's been a long day but it's not yet over. Dapat ang unang advice ay 4 p.m. ang dating or landing ng eroplano ni former President Rodrigo Duterte sa NAIA Terminal 3. But a little bit before 10 a.m., nasabihan tayo na alas 10 na darating. So there was a change in flight schedule. Pero pagdating natin sa airport ay mukhang preparado yung Philippine government officials na nandun para i-serve yung warrant. Kasi paglabas para pumunta sa media scrum si Senator Bongo, ay hindi niya na nakita si former President Rodrigo Duterte. What happened was that sinalubong na siya doon ni Prosecutor General Richard Fadulion. Nandun na rin si Special Envoy for Transnational Crimes, Marcos Lacanilaw, at doon na siya hinainan ng warrant of arrest na pinadaan sa Interpol at dire-diretso na siyang dinala dito sa Villamor Air Base. As far as we know, Bea, former President Rodrigo Duterte is still inside the Villamor Air Base, is still detained inside the Villamor Air Base, and we have no confirmation as of yet kung ano yung mangyayari ngayon. Ngayon, we are working with an Interpol framework, and as per Interpol rules, this provisional arrest that has been effected this morning has to go through a legal process, which is extradition or surrender. Mas madali sana kung susuko talaga si former President Rodrigo Duterte. But as per, basing on latest rhetoric, parang hindi yun yung mangyayari. So, will he be extradited and to where? Because wala naman tayong relationship ngayon sa ICC. But we do have diplomatic relations with the Netherlands. Isa pang pinag-uusapan ngayon ng mga lawyers ay dapat daw ba siyang dalhin muna sa isang judicial authority or a local judge, because that's what is stated on Article 59 of Rome Statute. But then again, hindi na tayo member ng ICC, and this goes to show the complex character of an international justice where the state, the Philippines, is not a member of the ICC, but it is willing to abide by international, by ICC mechanisms, by finding a way, which is that via Interpol. And I'm glad you have lawyers and experts on the panel who could maybe explain to us the complexity of this process for the former president.
Pia, you have a question for Lian?
Lian, my question is more to do with the practical next steps. How long can Duterte stay detained? Kasi mayroon bang some sort of deadline that by this time kailangan may mangyari, or will he eventually have to be released on some grounds?
Yun yung ironic, because if he were arrested on a local warrant, dapat pinapalabas na siya within 36 hours. Pero hindi naman siya local warrant, international warrant siya. But then again, you have the rule that all local laws should apply. Kaya yun yung sinasabi ng mga Team Duterte na magpa-file sila ng petition for habeas corpus, which is something that you file if you think that your client has been illegally detained. Hindi natin sure kung nag-a-apply ba dito yung normal rules of court na dapat by 36 hours. You've either charged him or released him. Kaya humihingi talaga tayo ng some clarity from our justice officials. The Department of Justice promised they will be having a statement, pero hanggang ngayon wala pa. But Pia, if we are to compare it historically to international suspects, which Duterte is now, nagtatagal talaga sila ng ilang araw na nakadetain dun sa custodial state nila or yung sa arresting state nila precisely because hindi madaling mag-facilitate ng transfer to where maybe the Marcos government has everything in place and they're just not telling us, but those are the complex character of this. We don't know what we're following.
Speaking of word from the Marcos government, kanina pa actually 11 a.m. nakaschedule a briefing from the Presidential Communications Office. Until now, wala pa ring briefing from Malacanang, but we are expecting that maybe not Yusek Claire Castro, but maybe someone from the palace to enlighten us on what will be happening next to the former president. Also, just as we are discussing, no, yung next steps for the former president, Kitty Duterte, the daughter of Rodrigo Duterte, posted on her Instagram stories, which is apparently now our window into what's happening in Villamor. Parang may negotiations or may conversation between the CIDG chief, Nick Torre, and Medaldea, the former executive secretary of Duterte. They seem to be discussing he will be flown out. That seems to be the discussion, at least. For more information on that, we're flashing the video actually on screen right now. But for more information, you can go to the DS page that's on the Rappler website. Lian, will get back to you later kung ano mang updates na mangyayari from the DOJ, from the palace, or right there from Villamor on the ground. Thank you again, Lian. It's been a long day, and it's going to be a longer day for you, I guess, today. We have on the line former Senator Laila de Lima. Ma'am?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening,
everyone.
Good evening, former Senator.
Yes.
Laila, Duterte is now crying lack of due process. But I think between all of us here in this panel, kung ang pag-uusapan lang yung kawalan ng hustisya, you would be a testament to that, no? How does it feel hearing news that Duterte, under whose administration you were jailed for over 7 years, had been arrested in NAIA?
Of course, I'm quite relieved. Now, I've been waiting for this. Hindi lang po ako. But the victims, the families of the EJK victims, thousands of victims killed under the Duterte's war on drugs. So, very relieved. Although at first, nung kaninang umaga, when I got word about the arrest, I actually didn't know what to feel. Alam mo na, yung parang, eto na ba yun? Finally, it happened. Although we've been waiting for it. Last year pa nga yan hinihintay, July, October, and then na-move lang before the end of the year, and then February, and now this. So, this is it. This is it. So I'm quite relieved and I feel vindicated. I've been fighting for that. I've been fighting for not only for my own vindication, for justice for myself, but also especially justice for those victims. And about crying out about lack of due process or what, or asking for due process. It's so ironic to hear from him.
Yeah.
Because, now he appreciates, or now he sees the value of the of due process, something that they denied, or something that was deprived of by the victims, na basta na lang mga pinatay mercilessly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Laila, you were also former Justice Secretary, and I wanted to get your insights on, meron ba talagang basis si Duterte to cry that there is a lack of due process? Like, in your observation of how the process was carried out today, was there any lapse in the justice system, in the process? And I recall seeing Bongo's Facebook Live, Senator Bongo's Facebook Live, where he was saying, our passes were denied sa airport, parang he was trying to appear like parang binar siya in an unjust way. Yeah. Can you comment on that? And are they justified in saying there was a lack of due process?
I don't think so. Because look, here is a special case, an exceptional case. For the first time, it happened. We see this unfolding, all of these developments for the first time. This is a breakthrough development. Now we're dealing with an international court of jurisdiction, competent jurisdiction. Notwithstanding our withdrawal as member state of ICC or of Rome Statute, ay malinaw na may jurisdiction pa yung ICC. Now, ito may sinasabi, may mga nagsasabi, I heard kanina sa mga various reports, na pushing for the compliance with the process of extradition. But extradition does not apply here. Kasi, when you talk about extradition, it refers to crimes committed within a foreign country. And then, so the crimes here were committed right here in the Philippines. And we're not talking here about a foreign country. We're talking here about a foreign, a court, an international court na may sariling mga procedure, may sariling mga proseso. Kasama na dyan yung paghihingi ng tulong from the Interpol. And I understand that the arrest was effected with the presence also of Interpol agents or Interpol representatives. Kaya hindi ko alam kung ano yung mga sinasabi nila na mga linabag. Kasi yung mga Philippine laws naman not primarily applicable here. Kasi nga ICC ito. Now, may mga procedure, yung procedure for surrender. I reviewed the pertinent provisions of the Rome Statute. Ang nakikita ko doon, yung sinasabi doon na the ICC would rely on competent judicial authorities in the custodial state na meron silang i-determine. Like, actually very limited lang yung mga factual na mga i-determine nila. Number one is if the person arrested is the same person, which is the subject of the arrest warrant. Pangalawa, it's whether I respect yung karapatan nung arrested respondent. And pangatlo is yung whether procedure of arrest was effected. Now, I don't see from any reports na merong paglabag dyan. Now, yung syempre yung nag-ano siya na, syempre, I think it's being provided to him. Yung syempre kakausapin din niya yung pamilya niya. Nandyan yung pamilya, the Hanilet, I think, is there, and the daughter is there, and then mga nagsasalita ngayon yung mga lawyers niya. So I don't see that. So as of now, so far, nakikita ko, wala silang linalabag. Because we're talking here about ICC, which has jurisdiction. It retains its jurisdiction, notwithstanding yung withdrawal natin. So, ang pananaw ko is, hindi lang tungkol sa pag-cooperate during the investigation. Pag-cooperate din, nung nag-withdraw na state, tayo yon na, yung up to the culmination of the proceedings of the procedure, which is the arrest and also the surrender of the subject of the warrant of arrest to the Hague. So, yun po ang nakikita ko dyan.
Laila, yung inaabang natin ngayon, no, yung possible na pag-ship off, paglipad kay former President Duterte to The Hague. To say that you've been following the former president closely, I think is an understatement. Nung CHR po kayo, you went to Davao to investigate initial reports then of the DDS. No? Back when DDS meant only one thing, the Davao Death Squad. You led a Senate investigation into the drug war during the early years of the Duterte administration. First question would be, did you ever think this day would come where Duterte is arrested for crimes against humanity? And then what does this mean for justice in the Philippines for the victims of the drug war?
Ako naman, I never doubted na talagang dadating itong araw na ito.
Yeah.
Because ICC was truly working on it.
Yeah.
ICC was seriously and truly investigating the matter. And then we heard about, and we can confirm, that indeed sina Las Cañas, sila Edgar Matobato, nandun na sa kanila under the protective custody nila. So nahawakan na sila. So I've been saying the past few weeks na nasa advanced stage na of the investigation of ICC, and therefore anytime we can expect this development, which is the issuance of the warrant of arrest. So wala naman akong duda na mangyayari ito. And lalo na insofar as the victims are concerned, they've always considered ICC as their best hope because they would not see any significant development here in our country.
Yeah.
Even if nagpalabas na ng recommendation yung Quadcom to file criminal charges against Mr. Duterte and others like Senator Bato de la Rosa, former PNP chief, ay wala naman tayong nakikita na case na pinafile. But ICC has been doing its work na seryoso. Anyan na, yun ang resulta, yun ang outcome. So this is truly a most important or remarkable day. Then what does it say about our justice system?
Yeah.
Yun nga sinasabi natin, kasi nukul pa sana. ay meron ng ganito na nag-imbestiga. I tried in the CHR, also in the Senate, but look what happened. Yung sa Senate, after conducting just 3 hearings, in my capacity then as a chairperson of the Senate Committee on Justice and Human Rights, pagkatapos kong present si Edgar Matubato, inalis na ako. I was ousted by the majority of my colleagues as the chairperson of that committee. So truly, yung work ng ICC, yun talaga ang inaasahan, lalo na ng mga biktima.
Vindication, long time coming. Thank you again, former Senator Laila de Lima, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for hearing me out also. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. Developing news, Kitty Duterte, again, the daughter of the former president, is going live on Instagram. Again, Kitty has turned into a window into what's happening inside Villamor Air Base. Meanwhile, you can also follow the Rappler live updates page on the developing news that is Duterte's arrest. There will be an entry there soon about the Philippines preparing a chartered flight for Duterte to where we cannot say for certain for now. Now, speaking of Duterte, in Villamor Air Base, from NAIA, dinala siya sa Villamor. Si Jairo Bolledo, who also covers human rights and justice for Rappler, is there. Now, Jairo has been covering the Duterte arrest since this morning, actually. So, Jairo, bakit nga ba nasa Villamor pa rin ang former president? And what will happen next?
Yeah, Bea, nandito pa rin tayo sa labas ng Villamor Air Base kung saan nagpupulong pa rin ang mga supporters ng presidente dahil till now, at this moment, ay nandoon pa rin sa loob ang dating Pangulo. He is being held for the over the ICC warrant na inilabas last week at inimplement kanina ng Interpol katulong ng local police. So ang mangyayari ay Duterte will be flown to an ICC member state. It depends on where. Hindi talaga certain until now, pero base sa rules ay kailangan ilipad siya sa isang ICC member state at saka i-turn over sa Hague dahil hindi na tayo member state ng ICC, so we can transfer him to a member state and that member state can transfer him directly to The Hague, the headquarters of the International Criminal Court. Our options could be the Timor-Leste, Cambodia for Southeast Asia, and then for nearby Asian countries, we can send him to Korea, Japan, or pwede rin naman, diretso na sa Netherlands because technically Netherlands is a different entity aside from the ICC. So these are the options available for the Philippines to send Duterte in. But kung kailan, anong oras, wala pa rin certain until this moment. But everyone is waiting until this moment kung ano yung magiging movement sa loob ng Villamor Air Base. Mataas kasi yung security, not even former Chief Presidential Legal Counsel, isa sa mga lawyer ni Duterte na si Attorney Salvador Panelo ay pinapayagan sa loob. Only family members and a few lawyers, katulad ni former Executive Secretary Medial Dea, pinapayagan sa loob. Until now, wala pang ibang nakakapasok.
Jairo, medyo maingay dyan sa likod mo. Can you kind of walk us through what's happening behind you right now?
Yeah, alam mo kanina pa, wala pa rin ng pagdating natin dito, paglipat pa lang kay former President Duterte from NAIA to Villamor Air Base, ay nagkukulumpunan na yung mga supporters dyan dito. Some are supporters, some are pro-Duterte vloggers. And meron din mga high profile dito ng mga supporters. Kanina pa rin dito, di natin nakikita sa mga oras na ito si former Secretary Trixie Angeles, pero nandito siya kanina. Si Attorney Salvador Panelo arrived here earlier. He tried to enter the airbase pero hindi siya pinayagan ng mga kapulisan at hanggang ngayon nandito pa rin. Nagkukulumpunan pa rin itong mga vloggers ito. Kanina pa sila umaga dito at hindi sila umaalis talaga. From time to time, they will cheer on Duterte and from time to time, they will also hit at Marcos. There were times earlier na sumisigaw sila ng Marcos bangag or they tried to ipahiya at magkaroon ng oppositions against dito sa movement at development sa ICC by attacking President Marcos.
I think we have a question from Chay Hofileña for Jairo.
Yes, Jairo. I was just wondering kasi kayo ni Lian nakababa the whole day, no? And yung what was very stark also when we were watching was yung PNP. Very, very large number of police, strong presence. Did you get any inkling of this, like in the past few days na naghahanda ang PNP for something as big as
I'm sorry, Bea, I didn't catch your last question.
Sorry, hindi pala narinig ni Jairo si Chay. Sorry. I will transmit Chay's questions. Again? Ma'am Chay, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I was asking, kasi nga in the past few days, we've been noticing na, kanina, we noticed na ang daming police na present. No? I was wondering whether in the days prior to today, you got any indication that the PNP was preparing for something as big as this?
Yeah. So, Ma'am Chay was asking, napansin nga natin, daming police sa NAIA, dyan sa Villamor. In the days prior to today, were there indications that the PNP and other law enforcement agencies possibly were preparing for something as big as this happening today?
Yes, Bea, definitely. Yesterday, we received high-profile information or information from a high-profile source telling us na nagpe-prepare na nga itong Philippine National Police sa pangunguna ni PNP Chief Police General Romel Francisco Marbil. In fact, Marbil was spotted yesterday sa NAIA pa lang. At doon nga, as early as yesterday, sinabihan na tayo that they were preparing to implement the arrest warrant against the president. But we ran the story on the preparation of the arrest or the preparation of PNP in general, but we waited for other corroborations and triangulations of sources to confirm the arrest itself. But yes, definitely there were signs, there were actually tangible information, concrete information coming from different sources about the preparation of the police. And it shows here actually kasi hindi lang basta ito mga ordinary members ng police, Bea. May mga members dito ng SWAT, meron din tayo mga HPG members na nakapalibot dito sa vicinity ng dalawang gate ng Villamor Air Base. So nasa likod ko, ito yung gate 5. Pero a few meters away from here, yung gate 4, may mga nakadestino rin doon na mga kapulisan na nakatayo at meron silang mga shields and nagpapalit-palit sila ng mga shifts, nakashifting sila para i-guard itong labas mismo ng Villamor Air Base.
Siguro yung isang notable dito na, again, nabanggit natin kanina up top, si CIDG Chief Nick Torre. Isa din siya sa mga personalities ng PNP na actually ngayon siya at he is negotiating with the former president. I'll try to read off some updates from the live. Again, Kitty Duterte, the daughter of the former president, is live on Instagram, giving us a peek into what's happening behind the scenes. Mukhang Duterte is arguing that, well, when he doesn't want to be turned over to the ICC, but General Torre is saying that former President Duterte can choose 3 companions. The former president also saying na masyadong malayo ang The Hague. Indeed, malayo yun. Tama siya.
Duterte also hates cold weather. I remember that's why he refused to go anywhere in the northern hemisphere kasi ayaw talaga. And it's like winter right? at the moment.
That will probably be the least of his concerns. Jairo, we're gonna go back to you maybe later for more updates. Kung ano nga mangyayari kay former President Rodrigo Duterte. Thank you for joining us. It's again been a long day for you. It's gonna be a long night probably for the rest of the day. Sana naman wag abutin ng bukas pero tingnan natin. Thanks, Jairo.
Thank you, babe.
Now joining us on Zoom, we have Human Rights Watch's Kaloy Conde joining us tonight. Kaloy, good evening.
Hey, good evening. Good evening, guys. Happy to be here.
I'm sure it's a very good day for you. I'm sure you have a lot to say, pero initial reaction, thoughts, what does this mean for victims of the drug war?
Well, based on sa mga pag-uusap-usap namin, exchanging messages about these things, human rights defenders, fellow human rights defenders, they're quite ecstatic about this because this is something that they fought for a long time. We were basically pleasantly surprised that this happened so soon. We were kind of preparing medyo matagal pa to, knowing how the ICC operates these days, given a lot of stuff on its plate, and but then this happened. So this is just, as we said, this is just an initial first step toward accountability and justice, and we hope that the process gets along in a way that's proper as outlined in their own statute. Medyo nakakatawa lang that all of these people around Duterte are now claiming being victimized by all of this. I don't want to venture into guessing or saying they don't their complaints should not be heard. But the fact is that they are in a situation right now that they, or Duterte, does not control. So that seems to be really, that must have discombobulated a lot of them. So this is exactly the kind of response that we sort of expected from them. But as I said, this is a long process, and we have taken the first start. And for the victims of the drug war violence, this is a momentous day.
Yeah.
And we are not really celebrating or anything because this is just a first step. But at last, for now, we see something happening because marami sa kanila talaga, they have practically lost faith in the domestic accountability mechanism of the Philippines, and they have been pinning their hopes on the ICC, and now finally this happened.
Right. Again, I'm going to ask you the question I asked former Senator Laila de Lima earlier. Kasi to say that you have been following Duterte's drug war is an understatement. Nung mayor pa siya ng Davao, I distinctly remember as a cub reporter reading the Human Rights Watch report on the DDS in Davao City. Was this something that you imagined back then that would happen one day to Duterte? Never mind the steps along the way, no? Imagining that he would one day become president of the Philippines, etc., etc. And have you spoken to victims of the drug war even in Davao City?
Well, not on the last question, not specifically immediately after this, because today has been in a flux.
Yeah.
But I've been talking with other human rights defenders about this, exchanging notes, doing virtual high fives and all of that. But I get the sense from them, they who have spoken with victims are they're beyond ecstatic. I think a lot of relief is evident in their interaction with them. So that's good. And somebody, on your first question, did I expect this to happen? To be honest, I hadn't even thought about this day for the long time that I've been covering the extrajudicial killings related to the Davao Death Squad, and then this. I mean, we tended to, I think, take for granted how the ICC can, will figure in at some point. But probably that's because we were so overwhelmed by covering all of these things that were happening, and so going to the ICC was just a matter of course for a lot of us. But I think this is a testament, really, to the tenacity of the victims themselves and many human rights advocates on the ground in Davao City, across Metro Manila, who have really provided, the international community, including us, all the information that we needed, all the testimony that we needed, and eventually provide all of this also to the ICC. This is the backbone of this case. This is like, none of this would have happened without the courage of these victims, of those who filed, information through groups, and then meet with, the ICC in Europe, and meet with the UN in Geneva, and many other diplomatic actors. So, this is a testament to their courage, basically. I mean, tayo naman dito sa Pilipinas, we report about this, we document these things, but at the end of the day, we can only do so much. It's them, these victims, these rights defenders on the ground. I'm not even talking about myself because, to be honest, I'm just tagamasid lang, no. This is the people who are directly dealing with the pain, the suffering of these victims. This is a salute to them, basically.
Yeah, the courage and stamina, no, of them having to confront the trauma over and over again is what really led to this day. Pia, you have a question for Kaloy?
Hi, Kaloy. My question has to do, I have two questions. So yung una, kasi Duterte is still in the Philippines, right? A lot can happen. There could still be backdoor talks. He's not yet in The Hague. Do you and your other Human Rights Watch advocates and colleagues expect any spoilers in the coming days? And how would you drum up the pressure so that these spoilers don't happen?
It's not so much that we expect spoilers, but or at the very least, I can say that we expect the process to really move forward. We're talking about the ICC here. They have a well-established kind of procedure for this sort of thing. Something that's beyond the control of the likes of Duterte and his minions. And that's why they're so really, apoplectic about these things. But you know, you can never really tell what can happen as long as he's here. That's why we're really calling on the Marcos administration to really start the process of bringing him to The Hague as soon as possible. Because the longer this drags on, the longer he stays in Villamor Air Base, for instance, the more opportunity there will be for his people to just exploit this whole thing for political gain. And so I think it is in the interest of justice and accountability that Mr. Duterte is brought to The Hague post haste. And you know, his camp can do whatever they want. And I mean, to be honest, they have the right to do whatever they want to try to push back against this. They have the right to complain to the Supreme Court, which they already did, as you reported, and that's fine. But again, this is a totally new, totally different ballgame. And we're seeing here kind of the response by the Duterte camp is the predictable response that they had always had in facing criticisms or actions like this for accountability. So, yun, dapat talagang madala na siya as soon as possible sa Hague and let this process move along.
Last question for me, Kaloy. What would you say to people who see this as political persecution, that this is nothing else but yet another effort of a president to target another president? You know, they see the TV and see, ito na naman, another victim of political drama. What would you say to those people who think that way?
You know what? They can spin this whatever they want, however they want. They can, you know, make of this, you can, you know, present this, depict this as a political kind of action by the Marcos camp. But let's not lose sight of the fact that Mr. Duterte's drug war created what is the Philippines' worst human rights catastrophe. None of this politics, none of this politicking, none of this, you know, brouhaha that we're seeing right now matters to the victims of that catastrophe. What matters right now is that we are seeing a process that we hope could end with accountability and justice for the thousands that have been killed and those who suffered. You know, what they're doing right now, what they're spinning all of this, they're dancing on the graves of all the people that have been harmed by the drug war. Let's put it that way. I think, you know, a shame on them for making this into a political circus, because that's what they're doing. This is a international judicial process. This is an accountability process. You know, no matter how you spin this, it is what it is. And you know, the sooner they accept the fact that you know, they don't have control over this, that they have lost control of this. Once the ICC decided to investigate, the better for them and the better for the country.
Speaking of the Marcos administration, we're still waiting for word from the palace. Again, we were told, or there was a briefing scheduled at 11. Naghintay tayo ng 12. Ang dami na nangyari since, but we have yet to hear from them. Although, I understand we're still on standby kung sakaling may magsalita nga mula sa palasyo. But meanwhile, speaking of the other side naman, Vice President Sara Duterte, the daughter of the former president, just issued a statement. Right now, I'll just read part of it, or I'll read it in full. According to Vice President Sara Duterte, today our own government has surrendered a Filipino citizen, even a former president at that, to foreign powers. So far, we have not yet surrendered former President Duterte to any foreign power. According to the Vice President, this is a blatant affront to our sovereignty and an insult to every Filipino who believes in our nation's independence. Worse, former President Rodrigo Duterte is being denied his fundamental rights. Since he was taken this morning, he has not been brought before any competent judicial authority to assert his rights and allow him to avail of release provided by law. As I write this, he is being forcibly taken to The Hague tonight. This is not justice, this is oppression and persecution. This act shows the world that this government is willing to abandon its own citizen and betray the very essence of our sovereignty and national dignity. God save the Philippines. This is very familiar rhetoric from the Vice President. Kaloy, actually want to ask you about that. Parang, how are these narratives, and we'll talk to Gaby about that later on, but how are these narratives affecting the work of human rights defenders on the ground and the families of the drug war, right?
This, it is dispiriting to hear rhetoric like that. They're just trying to milk this for political propaganda and for political gain. All that claim about this is an affront to the sovereignty of the country, that's all baloney. That's all nonsense. They're saying that because they want to turn this into a political circus that can benefit them. That's the bottom line for us. Again, I'm emphasizing that this is an accountability process. This is something that thousands of victims of the drug war need to see happen. And for them to now say that what's being done to Mr. Duterte is it violates the Constitution, violates due process, violates the country's sovereignty. It's just a lot of BS, to be frank. We're not saying that the government should be okay for government to violate his rights. But from the way it looked today, I don't think that's that any violation of the rights of Mr. Duterte, no matter how ironic that is for him to claim that, was not evident. So what are they talking about? Again, they can claim to high heavens that the Philippines is no longer a part of the ICC, that the ICC no longer has jurisdiction of the ICC. Technically, they're correct, but the cases are still under the jurisdiction of the ICC. They don't want to accept that because it goes against their arguments. That's what they're doing. So, they can claim again that this is an affront to sovereignty, but for the victims of the drug war, for all of those who suffered under this brutal campaign, this is an affirmation of their suffering. This is an affirmation of their need for them to have accountability and justice at last. And again, we're just on the first step here.
Yeah. Mahabang proseso pa ito. The Dutertes seem to have a very vast vocabulary. You will see today if they learn that accountability should be part of it. Thank you again, Kaloy, for joining us. Again, just a quick recap. You are watching Rappler. Today is March 11, 2025. And earlier today, former President Rodrigo Duterte was arrested at NAIA in Manila over a warrant issued by the ICC, or the International Criminal Court. He is the first Philippine head of state to be arrested through an order by an international tribunal. Now, my colleague here, Gaby, has been keeping her ears and eyes close to the digital space, online cyberspace, the kumunoy of the world, partly so that we don't have to. So, Gaby, nabanggit natin to ni Kaloy kanina, no? Yung narratives that the Duterte camp is trying to put forward, what are they trying to say online?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting kasi everything that we've seen so far online, we're still currently monitoring, if there are any new narratives that come up, but everything that we've seen so far that we've already touched on earlier in the panel. So, for instance, they're always looking at, the fact na wala na tayo sa ICC. Do they still have the jurisdiction over the country? Can they still, is it a lawful arrest? That's what all the Duterte allies are saying. It's not a legal arrest. It's not a lawful arrest because is there an arrest warrant? We're not part of the ICC anymore. Can they still do this to the president? And of course, they're amplifying, the updates from Kitty Duterte, showing that, making him look like a victim, essentially. That he's not being given his medical needs. Yeah. He's being detained not in a lawful way. So they're really amplifying all of these narratives that make him look like the victim in this scenario without putting the context behind of course the drug war victims that took the lives of over 30,000 victims. Yeah. And they're also painting Duterte as like a larger than life leader, and they've been doing this for the past few years, that he's an indestructible leader. He's bigger than he's fighting for the country. May malasakit talaga siya for the Filipinos, and that he's a very fearless leader who knows what's best for his country. That's the kind of picture that they want to paint amid all the what they call political persecution given this case.
Right. We'll talk more about the attempts to lionize the former president. I think Pia will also have a lot to say about that. But for now, on Zoom, joining us is Father Flavie Villanueva. Father Flavie, you've been helping drug war victims all these years, sometimes to your personal threat na rin, ano, Father? Have you spoken to the families and survivors? What are their sentiments after the events of today? Oh, hold on. Hold that thought, Father. There you go.
Nataranta ako kapag kaharap ko Rappler eh.
So, Father,
boss nyo pag nandito. Pero mas natataranta ako ngayong araw. Totoo ba to? Yeah, it's real. It's real. This has been, we have been working on this for years. Yeah. And it's taking place as we speak. And I met with them. I was supposed to meet with them just for a simple meeting this lunchtime before I leave for the just to take a short break. But when the news broke out this morning, and I had it confirmed in my morning meeting at 9 a.m., I told everybody to gather the victims as much as we could and let us offer a Thanksgiving Mass, which we had at 3 p.m. at Sacred Heart Command, Quezon City.
Chay, you have a question for Father Flavie? Which I will then relay to him. Oh no, he can hear you. He can hear you pala.
Can you hear me, Father?
Yes, okay lang. Yeah. Go ahead, Chay.
I'm just curious, no? Because I remember meron kang nakwento before that among even the yung family of extrajudicial killings na victims, parang sabi nila, they even asked you kung okay ba itong senator who was allied with Duterte. And it came as a shock to you na sirkulo na ito ng extrajudicial EJK victims, pero meron pa ring attraction yung Duterte allies. How are you dealing with that?
I've always respected the thoughts of the people we journey with, especially the widows. I would perhaps intervene and pose a question, or questions, one or two. Are you really certain? Sigurado ka ba sa iyong kaisipan? No? Things like that. Just to also prick the conscience. Kasi, and secondly, the motivation. So I deal with it both with what they went through and with their motivation. Because as we all know, mahirap kapag sikmura ang naging motivasyon ng pagboto. But then again, in program Paghilom, we ask them to go deeper prior to what the candidates offer that is so flimsy and passing. We Bishop Ambo just texted. We deal with it with utmost respect to their opinions without wanting to slight them, because that would be another trauma for them. But it's so consoling to see also how they seek for guidance. And after which they, having feel empowered, they move on the proper direction.
And how are you able to do what you've been doing all these years? Meron bang steady stream of support na dumadating sa inyo? Marami bang supporters ang mga EJK victims na families?
You know, partly the answer to that, Chay. It's how I wish. Parang it's the same question that we posed years ago. ICC is coming. I would get a response, how I wish. You know that I also provide food buffet, and showers for the homeless people every day. And it is unfortunate and painful for me to see how people, Catholics, would tend to choose the safer side over the victims. And this is them, the victims behind me. They would rather choose the homeless over these people. So, as far as to your question, do I have a steady support? None. As far as where do I get my support? People like you, who don't get tired of reporting what is right. People like them who told me once, Father, siguro kung may dingding, kung may pinto lang, o kung may gate, yung bahay ko, baka hindi na tokhang yung aking anak. Meaning to say, we are the privileged ones. And when I hear stories from these families, these people, these victims, saying that they will fight, they will not give up, they are resolved to see this through the end, even if I'm being offered to go abroad for a breather, for some safe space, I couldn't say no. I couldn't say yes to that invitation because of them. I continue to fight what we have been doing since 2016 because of the widows and orphans.
Thank you, Father. You know, si Jodes has been one of our writers also who's been talking to EJK victims. Tapos kanina, meron siyang mga nakausap, no? And siguro I just like to read parts of yung mga quotes na ito yung boses ng mga pamilya. Sabi nung isa, nakakaiyak ako, hindi ko alam ang dapat kong maramdaman na sa ilang taon naming ipinaglalaban ay nakamit din namin ang hustisyang aming minimithi. Tapos meron pang isa. This is also in reference to yung sinasabi kanina na ni Kitty Duterte na parang walang rule of law, walang justice, etc. etc. Ito siguro yung magandang sagot doon. Sabi niya, mabuti pa siya inaresto ng mga kapulisan. Ang aming mga kaanak pinatay agad. Napakalaki ng pagkakaiba sa pagitan ng makapangyarihan at ordinaryong taong tulad namin. So dun lang kitang-kita yung difference Ito yung mga pinatay, ito yung mga naiwan na biktima ng EJ case. Tapos ito si dating Pangulong Duterte who is already crying about injustice and walang legal procedures. Pero yun na nga, the irony is really staring us in the face.
That's true. That's true, Chay. And if I may, I met with them as well. And of course, prior to, as early as 11, I've been listening to them. I asked them how they felt and how they're dealing with it. Merong isa na nabuluntan ng tinik, dating sinaksak ng bala, sinaksak ng ice pick, pero ngayon nabunot naman ay tinik. Yung isa ay, ito yung gusto ko, nasa preso sila, dahil namatay yung mahal sa buhay, tapos madilim, and ngayon na nabalita nila, unti-unti bumubukas yung pinto ng presohan. Unti-unti silang lumalabas, lumalayo sa dilim, nakakalaya sa rehas, at umaapak na sa papag, sa semento ng katarungan.
Father, sorry.
Sorry?
Sorry, I have to cut you because there's breaking news happening in Villamor. We'll get back to you, Father. I'm so sorry. We have Lian
let's listen to
Buan.
that.
We have Lian Buan reporting live from Villamor right now. Lian, can you hear us? Can you hear Lian?
Yes, yes. Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you, Bea. Kakagulo sa likod ko. Nag-advance yung mga Duterte supporters at nag-advance yung mga Duterte supporters. They were not here before. Kanina nandun sila. But now they're advancing toward the gate of the Villamor Air Base. They're advancing towards the gate of the Villamor Air Base. I assume this is because they've caught wind of the news na merong chartered plane for former President Rodrigo Duterte. So ayan, makikita natin na nag-advance yung Duterte supporters. The police kanina nag-advance din, so there was a bit of tension there kanina. Pero it's a little bit calmer now than before. Ayun, makikita nyo naman. I'll ask our cameraman to pan it to them and you can see.
Yeah, nakita namin yung nangyayari ngayon. May mga supporters of the former president. Earlier, they seemed to try to inch closer, no, sa gate ng Villamor. Nakalabas syempre yung mga cellphone. Lian, yes, sorry. Go ahead, Lian.
Kailangan meron tayong hangganan. Hindi pwede lalampas tayo.
I don't know, we have a couple of supporters and we have a little bit of vloggers trolling us right now, pero we will keep the focus on the Duterte supporters. May mga umiiyak at may mga sumisigaw na ang naririnig natin dito ay wala silang utang na loob. Pero yan, things are a little, medyo calm na now kasi nagre-retreat na sila. So, they're retreating, pwede na silang bumalik. They're going back to their original places. You can see the other supporters behind us.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah, it's a little bit calmer now, Bea, fortunately.
Yeah, Lian, mag-ingat ka dyan. Just to recap, in case you couldn't hear Lian, kasi medyo maingay where she is right now. Kanina nagkaroon ng tense moment kasi nag-move forward yung mga supporters ng former president who have been there since earlier today. So nag-move forward sila, syempre nag-react din yung police. They also tried to push back the crowd, but it seems that the situation there is calming down, tensions are going down. So again, Lian is at Villamor. We'll be tossing back to her for any major updates. Sabi ni Lian kanina, mukhang nakarinig di umano. Ito na naman tayo sa mga di umano ng mga supporters, yung mga supporters ni former president na may chartered plane na nga daw. But we're also getting reports that there is a plane ready for the former president. Lian, again, is in Villamor Air Base covering the situation outside. And I think this is also a reminder, no, na as this is unfolding, the former president and the Duterte brand, if you could call it that, remains quite popular. There are still a lot of hardcore supporters, perhaps, of the former president. Na-curious lang din ako, Father, parang how do you deal with that, no? As we speak to victims of the drug war, you also have these people who, you know, parang as in kanina, ready sumugod or nag-attempt na sumugod at least sa Villamor Air Base, decrying na injustice over what's happening to the former president.
Well, Bea, that's expected naman. That's expected. I didn't think anything less to that. Kaya nga ang pakiusap ko nga sana as I was dealing with our friends outside, if we could, do it in Hong Kong. If we could, do it in an airport. But never outside these places. For two reasons, drama and bloodshed. No? Alam naman natin na meron sila suporta plus the money, but ngayon hahamunin ko sila. Let all the trolls come out. If they claim to have so many trolls by the millions, please, by all means, tell us that we're wrong and prove that you're right.
Yeah.
No? sorry, just to directly respond, it's expected.
Yeah.
Meron din naman silang nabola, meron din naman silang mga diehard na tao.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's their right. That's their right.
Yeah. Father, before we let you go and before you answer Cardinal Ambo's message to you, what is it that you hope people take away from the events of today? Again, parang the narratives, which Gaby will expound later on, the narratives, the politics of this all, it's easy to overshadow who's the victors, kumbaga, of today, the victims of the drug war. What is it that you hope people remember and take away from today?
First would be why we have today. Why we have today. And that would be because of the murders. Not only of the 6 years, but of the reign in Davao.
Yeah.
Mas madugo nga po yung sa Davao eh. Hindi pa lang nauungkat lahat. So, remember history. Second would be the people who fought and the victims who stood, who bravely stood against and said no to the killings. Media, the widows and orphans, a fraction of the church, and the international perhaps people and the rest of those people who believe that any killing and all forms of killing is wrong. Thirdly, hindi na pwede. There could never be another like this or even close to this that should happen. The warrant of today is and should always be a warrant to the coming elections. And the further elections that will take place. Mag-isip naman sana, let us think of how and who would be the next people we would be entrusting who to lead us. Let us learn from the Dutertes.
Thank you, Father Flavi, for joining us tonight. Sana masarap po yung ulam niyo mamaya.
Thank you.
And you can now reply to Cardinal Ambo. Thank you for joining us, Father. Gaby, again, all of the things that's happening now, we see yung sinisigaw nila dyan sa labas ng Villamor. Ganun din ba yung sinisigaw online? Or saktong-sakto? Or magkaiba?
Yeah. No, actually, like, ganun talaga yung mga nakikita natin online. Like, of course, we're still constantly monitoring partisan discussions on the arrest warrant. But it's actually really interesting because we did see like a very partisan divide. Of course, we did see the Duterte supporters online try to mobilize, and they said that this would be like a people power of sorts, protesting against the warrant. They think it's unlawful and they want to gather and show people that, we're still strong. We're still...
Jairo kanina,
yes, exactly.
ng EDSA.
Yes, exactly. So people like Jairo din parang they want this kind of show of power. Kumbaga, to show that the Duterte supporter base is still going strong.
Yeah.
I also wrote a piece about this earlier this year that they're still very much alive on social media, and as we can see, they're also very much alive on the ground as well and very active. And we did also look into the divide, of course, between the Duterte camps and the pro-Marcos camps.
Yeah.
Because they had a very public fallout, the president and vice president.
But yes.
But that's the most delicate way that we could put it. And we did see online that they started pointing fingers at the Marcos administration for the arrest warrant, that they even compared it to, Ninoy at NAIA.
So ironic.
So ironic because, Ninoy was killed in NAIA and Duterte was arrested at NAIA. So, of course, there's that, they put that kind of parallel. They want to have a new people power. And, of course, what's interesting also is we did see some pushback from the Marcos camp. The Marcos camp, they were among the people online posting about the victims of the drug war. Of course, we saw a lot of different people, like even those that aren't partisan, welcoming the arrest. Because, of course, they want justice for the victims. They want accountability. But we did also see a bunch of pro-Marcos pages sharing posts about, not celebrating, but then remembering the victims, honoring the victims of the drug war. So there's a very clear partisan divide, of course, online, and we're seeing that on the ground as well. So it's so interesting how, of course, we might see these online and think, baka trolls lang sila, baka they're not real supporters, but as we can see on the ground, these are very much real people, and the Duterte supporter base is still going strong.
Interesting. A Marcos supporter posting about human rights and remembrance. But to jump on what Gaby mentioned, no, kanina nga si Juan Ponce Enrile, who is the legal counsel of legal advisor of the president, posted on or released a statement reminding people that the quote legal problem of former President Rodrigo Duterte is not caused by Philippine laws, because his legal problem is caused by laws enforceable by the ICC, etc., etc. The full statement is posted, I believe, on our live updates page. So it's interesting to see what's the narratives that they're pushing forward online. Did you want to add anything about what we're seeing online, Gaby?
Well, I think it's really a testament to how we can't underestimate what we see online, because of course these are real people. They can mobilize on the ground. Of course, they can cause commotions like that. That's what we're seing.
Hindi na siya online lang, no?
Yeah, hindi siya online lang. Like, we can't assume that this is just online. This is not real. It's not in any way significant. But no, because online mobilization can very much lead to this kind of on ground pushback as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Gaby, for keeping close attention to online discussion, so we do not have to. And we'll toss it to my co-panelist here, Pia. Pia, you had the privilege, the burden of covering Duterte as a presidential candidate, Duterte's first years, and you also had the this privilege you were literally there when you found out, when we all found out na you and Rappler were being kicked out of Malacanang. Knowing what you know about the former president, what's going on through his head right now? Is this something that he saw coming when he was there in Malacanang?
This was a day he dreaded. Day one, when he heard about a complaint to the ICC.
Right.
And that's why the moment he heard of that, kita naman, he really mobilized his entire administration to make sure that does not happen.
Yeah.
So I remember those days, diba, he even issued this very long argument about why ICC does not have jurisdiction over the Philippines, why we should withdraw, etc. And that catalyzed this whole process. So the Justice Department was mobilized to really withdraw.
Yeah.
And then naalala ko, his speeches at the time were all threats against ICC.
Yeah.
He even claimed ICC judges were pedophiles. He said most of them were white when they are not mostly white.
Yeah.
He had threats to slap or kill ICC judges. So talagang he used his whole arsenal, his whole messaging platform, his own speeches to demonize the ICC. And I think he's really tapping into this parang the fear of the foreign.
Yeah.
Yung parang be suspicious of anyone who's foreign.
Yeah.
And this narrative he often uses against his critics, diba? Like, foreign funded, yung parang this suspicion of whatever is foreign, not us. It's us against them.
Yeah.
They're not aligned with us. They're our enemies. We should not trust them. So itong parang this very Filipino trait of yung suspicion nga, not trusting. Parang may yung parang anti-American, anti-West. He's been using it all this time for his own ends to kind of protect him. And I also remember may isang anecdote yung isang source na nandun mismo sa briefing when Duterte was briefed about the ICC case. Parang sabi ng source, Bongo even stood up and parang he made this commitment na, "Sir, kung i-aresto kayo, sasama ako sa kulungan." May ganun nangyari, parang talagang
I think
dramatic.
Senator Robin Padilla also made the same promise.
Right.
Sasama daw sila.
And very
Tignan
visual
natin
yung
kung sumama sila.
Parang he was even eating peanuts while he was being briefed, but he was silent throughout that whole process. Parang listening to what's next for him. And very obvious talaga na he says he's not scared, but I think he's very, very scared.
Right. I mean, kanina, I was talking about it earlier, and I think it's on the live updates page on the Rappler website, no? Na basically he was trying to negotiate with the CIDG chief, insisting na hindi siya pupunta sa ICC. At he was pointing out what we all know, that The Hague is quite far from where we are. We are now joined by Rappler CEO and Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Maria Ressa. Maria, a lot of things happening today. Initial thoughts?
I think it's a great signal for the world that the world can turn right side up, because the biggest problem that we're facing is this age of impunity.
Yeah.
The Philippines was among the first, and we're among the first to get some sense of justice. Right? Impunity you can't get away with it forever. And so that was my first thought. For us, it has been a long time coming. The evidence that you guys have pulled together, that are reporters, the stories that we've covered. So the first is, wow, regardless of how it happened, whether it is local politics, whether it is the battle between the president and his vice president, we have a man who has ordered the killings, has said on camera that
Explicitly.
Yeah. With
And is
the
proud
evidence
about it sometimes.
unrepentant.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, actually a good day.
Was this something that you saw coming?
You've been covering this forever.
We all have been.
I know. I think, Rappler published the story of the arrest warrant on Saturday. Chay Hofileña.
Yeah, I was going to bring her in the discussion.
She doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, is focused. And for us, we've seen so many people killed.
Yeah.
Right? On CCTV.
Yeah.
Kian de los Santos.
Yeah.
Right? So, justice does come. The world does turn right side up.
Yeah. Parang kailan lang, we saw pictures, videos. We saw with our own two eyes yung mga nakabalot na bangkay sa kalsada ng laban. Nabanggit na rin ni Maria. Chay, you broke the story of the issuance of the arrest warrant from the ICC. Matagal na rin natin actually minomonitor, di ba? Yung expected issuance of the warrant from the ICC. So can you walk us through paano nga ba tayo narating dito from the perspective of those who worked on the case and from the perspective of a journalist, right? How did we lead to this moment na ito na, i-issue na yung warrant or na-issue na yung warrant, and in fact the Philippines would implement it?
You have to remember that this did not happen in a snap. This took years and years, painful. Remember that the killing started not long after Duterte became president in 2016.
Hours.
It's been 9 long years. And there are people who thought or mistakenly believe that, because it's a recurring rhetoric, even in the petition that was filed with the Supreme Court by Duterte lawyers, si Bato, no? Parang they were saying that the ICC has no jurisdiction because the Philippines is no longer a member of the ICC. Let us put that issue to rest. The Philippines, the killings, in coverage ng ICC investigations covered November 1, 2011. At that time, the Philippines was still a member of the ICC. So from 2011 to March 2019, Duterte became president in 2016. The killing started in 2016. We pulled out of the ICC March 17, 2019. So ang coverage ng investigations of the ICC is that period, 2011 to 2019. When Duterte was mayor and when he was president. So stop insisting that the ICC has no jurisdiction because the Philippines is no longer a member. Yung coverage, member pa tayo nun.
Right.
So we started very, very aggressively. I will have to name Patricia Evangelista, Rambo Talabong, who were assigned, who did the graveyard shift, followed the killings. They had nightmares, writing about the bodies that they saw, and there were countless families. Alam mo, mahirap yun, very traumatic for any reporter to cover day in, every day, every night. And in one night, hindi lang isang katawan yung nakikita, several dead bodies, several waiting families. That's difficult. That's not easy. So from 2016 all the way to today, that's how many long years? 9 long years. So if you were a family member, madaling mawalan ng hope. there is no hope. There was no hope when Duterte was president. You can never get justice under Duterte kasi all powerful siya eh. And then there was that alliance, Duterte Marcos. We should not forget that.
Yeah.
They were together, and if today Duterte, Sara Duterte and Bongbong Marcos were still together, and alliance unit team was still there,
Yeah.
this would not have happened.
Yeah.
So, swerte na lang ba tayo that there was that break in the alliance, and so therefore Marcos is ready to go against Duterte. So ano rin it's very political, and that's what's very frustrating. But yeah, for us as journalists, we just keep on following the story. We keep on digging. We don't give up, and we end up with today. And of course, it doesn't end today. Parang start pa lang to, then we move on to the next phase in The Hague, if that's where he's going to be brought.
Yeah.
But remember, we expected the arrest warrant as early as August before Gaza, right? Remember that? We were told, August you're going to get the arrest warrant, but then the attack on Israel happened. Israel then went into Gaza. That put the ICC came out first with the arrest warrants against. Imagine Prime Minister Netanyahu and the head of Hamas, right? So now it's many years. It's a year later.
Yeah.
And then the saga. I mean, let's go back to Slobodan Milosevic, who was the leader, who was brought to the Hague, extradited to the Hague. When that happened, he was arrested, immediately brought to the Hague, and then he was in jail for 5 years there before before the trial began. But again, a sense of justice.
5 years.
But it's a very important reminder from Chay, na parang we have a tendency to have a very short attention span, and people see this through the lens of the unit team breaking. But we have to remember nga the years, and even before 2016, di ba? Nabanggit nga ni Kaloy kanina, not just Human Rights Watch, but you have a lot of human rights defenders, lawyers, the victims of the DDS, the Davao Death Squad under Duterte. Parang kumbaga having the stamina and the courage to tell their story, to document their story. Grabe yung re-traumatizing every time you recount that, no? But it's very important, and it led to today, right? You need those stories to bring to the ICC.
It also reminds people that this is not normal, that the killings we had lived through in the days of Duterte was normalized. So that's a great thing, right? Question, Interpol coming in, because one of the other things that's being said is, well, no, because we have the case that was brought to the Supreme Court, which has now been raffled, right? Does our police, does the Interpol, who's arresting him? How does this work?
Miss Chay, would you have insights on that?
Kasi nga, we're not a member of the ICC now, but the arrest warrant was coursed through the Interpol.
And we're partners. We are
still part of the Interpol, and
Correct.
we've in fact made some requests through the Interpol. Remember Arnie Teves?
Yes,
so
correct.
we got Interpol's assistance there. So parang reciprocity. Now that the ICC is requesting for Interpol assistance, then the Philippines has to, because it is a member of the Interpol. It's obliged.
It's obliged to.
To help the ICC.
The same way you would say that if Hong Kong or China was asked by Interpol to do that, they would have been forced to do the same thing?
China would have to, but of course, China, if China doesn't or it delays, then I guess there would be repercussions and sanctions for that.
So that it was just interesting, right? What a fascinating day!
Everything that led to this, like even yung narrative of our Interpol obligations, right? That was first floated a year ago pa, or more than a year ago, by justice officials, and then eventually yung official na line ng Philippine government. Whenever they'd be asked, even Secretary Manalo, if he'd be asked, now, are we thinking about rejoining the ICC? He wouldn't actually answer that question. He just reiterate the Marcos stand, and then he'd go to the Interpol na. But we do have obligations under Interpol. But before that, as we talk about Interpol, let's go to Mindanao, where the Dutertes still enjoy a lot, huge popularity, no, based on recent surveys. We have Sir Herbie dialing in. Ano yung sentiment ngayon sa Mindanao, sir? Unsay feeling sa mga tao? Naglagot? Na-shock? Nangabuang? Sa nangahitabo today? Are they overwhelmed by what's happening in NAIA and Villamor?
Well, mostly you'll see them on social media. Pero it's another thing kung makikita mo sila on the streets. Although there are some activities, no, like in Davao City. Just a few hours, about noontime, shortly after the arrest, City Hall officials, led by the Vice Mayor, the Mayor was not around, si Baste was not around, but the Vice Mayor was there, together with several councilors, and then you hear words like remain calm, we're ready to offer our lives for you, meaning to Duterte, and we're deeply hurt, and we are with you, let's keep on fighting. So fighting, remain calm, as if they're hammering home the message ba na, it's like provoking people to do something. Okay, inciting people, So these are scenes and the messages that we're been reading on social media that followed the arrest, no?
Yeah.
And all this reflect somehow the divisions that have defined Duterte's rule or the Duterte dynasty. In Davao, again, his loyalists, siguro mga 500 or gawin na natin 1,000, gathered at the Rizal Park, just near City Hall, to light candles, to pray, to show their support for Duterte. Now, in Cagayan de Oro, in the city where I'm in, a Davaoeña, or a Cagayanon who worked in Davao, former broadcaster Girly Balaba, who's a close friend of Duterte. She's now a councilor in Cagayan de Oro. Had about 100 people near City Hall. There's a park there, and they demanded for the resignation of Marcos. And they keep on blaming Marcos for what happened to Duterte. I think that's the narrative that they want to push, that their Tatay Digong is a victim of political persecution, and somehow the Marcos administration has something to do with this. So that's the situation in Mindanao, Pero I think ang battlefront now is in Metro Manila. Diyan nakikita yung just outside the air base. Diyan ang tension, but in Mindanao not so much.
Rhea? Pia?
Well, ako, may comment lang. It's very telling that the Duterte camp is now trying to bring in health issues.
Yes.
And the
sounds
person
familiar.
that
Fresh off a
exactly that
trip
Senator Bongo brought was his physician, right? Duterte's physician. Yun yung, tapos nakita ko sa live niya, talagang minention niya na, due for a checkup tomorrow. He's turning 80 on March 28. So parang, it's kind of like a very expected playbook that once you have a politician who is facing a legal case, biglang health issues are raised, and it's almost like we know what the script is about. So I just had to put it out there.
And if I may add, may pinost si Mayor Baste on this, on social media. He said they want a prolonged standoff using General Torre,
Of course.
illegally detain and deny PRRD of medical care. So,
Yeah.
So I'm wondering,
Yun-
parang,
Help.
itong Interpol process, does it take account this tack, and how will they deal with that? You know, yung bringing up health issues, will that work with this process is what I'm wondering.
Kung bebenta ba yun?
But you have to remember, kanina, di ba? I think it's part of SOP, and the ICC will be very, very careful, and the Marcos government will also be extremely careful that it abide by the standards of the ICC in implementing the arrest warrant. Because otherwise, if you violate any of those requirements, then it can become a basis for some sort of an appeal or what have you, and it could jeopardize whatever they plan, whether it's trial or whatever, no? So I'm very sure. And kanina, the government, the PCO, was careful to say that there was a government doctor who checked, made sure that Duterte was in good health. So and then all of a sudden, kanina, di ba, we were kidding that his sugar probably spiked because he drank Coke.
You're so bad.
No, but the Marcos administration has been very calm. In fact, very matipid. Isa pa lang yung statement na ini-issue nila the whole day. Again, I am repeating this for the fourth time tonight. We haven't heard from the palace actually. They were supposed to have a presser at 11 a.m. Anong oras na? Mag-8 na. Wala pa ring talking head. Wala pa ring, we have not heard anything from the palace. Herbie, sorry, nagbisaya ako bigla, no? Pero we call him former President Rodrigo Duterte, but he is also Davao City Mayor hopeful, returning hopeful. Rodrigo Duterte, what's gonna happen now? Should he be, shipped to another country?
Dalawa lang yun. Either he could lose because of this, or mabuboost yung people will
popularity
with him, and vote for him even if he's not in the country.
Let's talk about
dalawa lang yun. Dependency tayo dyan. But this is a situation. This situation could benefit his main rival, Alice.
The long dreamed of City Hall takeover ng mga Nograles.
We talked earlier about the rift between the unit team, right?
Yes.
But it isn't only that, right? Before the impeachment process even began, the Marcos administration had already said if an ICC warrant were to come, that they would honor it, right? So I think, yes, we watched it over time, but keep in mind, again, this is the irony of it all. This President Marcos actually cares about what the international community thinks. He has been straightforward about systems of law. There has been, if any, Chay, you would know better if there were any interference or signals to the judiciary. The judiciary, the checks and balances of government seem to be working. Ironically, of course, now the United States is in a completely different time period than the Philippines. So I guess the question for us is going to be, as these tactics are rolled out, how do we cover it? Do people believe it? What's the reality? And I think we always need to weigh in on the side of reality. Lalang, fascinating.
No, but si Chay kanina was reminding us of the the lies that the Duterte camp has been spinning.
You have to call it a lie.
About the ICC, about jurisdiction, etc., etc. How effective? I mean, kasi parang ang hirap no? As we report on what's happening, we tell the stories of the victims of the drug war. Yung kalaban natin, or yung kalaban natin yung disinformation, right? Trying to change. How do we even, ano ba yung tanong? How do we do that? How do we make sense of that?
I think the Duterte camp will really maximize the fact that this is such a complex issue and untested, unexperimented. So what they're masters at oversimplification to the point that, like, no jurisdiction, these are foreigners getting a Filipino or kababayan. Parang these very simplified messages. They know kasi what resonates with people who may not have the time to understand the nitty-gritty, the complexities of the scenario. So I think it is really incumbent on journalists, on everyone actually to really explain in a simple way that we'll all understand why this process is happening and what are the intricacies of this that dispel the propaganda being spread by the Duterte camp.
And ironically, when you talk propaganda, I know you've spoken with Gaby, it doesn't seem like money has flowed to propaganda, right? At least at this point in time. Because we've certainly, and this is something we know at Rappler, we know when there's an information operation that's targeting a message to spread it on social media, right? Which is part of the reason what happened to us in the Philippines has happened everywhere else around the world. But I think the lesson we learned is call a spade, right? Is it true that he is, it's funny, the way you phrased it, Pia, is that, this is a playbook. That's already, I think, I'm watching this in the United States and frankly thinking they need the lessons we've learned here also. Because when someone lies, you have to call a lie. And that's the only facts and context. Facts and context. The number of people killed, those voices need to be heard. And you need to weigh in because journalists are not stenographers.
Chay, dagdag ko sa tanong ko kanina, yun nga about, as we try to report the stories of the drug war victims, as we try to fact check, correct these lies that are going around about the ICC, about the case, etc., we also cannot forget the backdrop of what's happening right now, diba? Yung impeachment ni Vice President Sara Duterte and the 2025 senatorial elections, of which Rodrigo Duterte was supposed to be the chief campaigner of the Duterte slate, PDP Laban slate. I don't know what to call it anymore. Basta endorsed by Duterte. What, aside from the steps moving forward dito sa ICC, what do we expect to happen in the coming weeks and months in the context of the 2025 elections?
You have to remember that Duterte was really the strong card, no? Sara is also very popular, but I think it's only because she has the Duterte name. So the name she benefits from the association with her father, even if we know there's a strained relations between father and daughter. With Duterte out of the equation, the next question is, will Sara be able to hold the fort? Because we know that her brothers are not really strong politically, and they're not good managers, to put it mildly. And even when Sara was mayor, and Herbie knows this, even when Sara was mayor, she was always absent. Her managerial expertise did not really shine through. And when she became vice president, became Department of Education secretary, that explains why she fumbled. There were a lot of errors. No? So the question now is, will the Duterte camp be able to spin this and say, because I've been seeing at least two threads. I don't know, Pia, if you're seeing more. One is the nationalist thread, which is what Duterte used when he was running. I am a nationalist, I am Filipino, that sort of thing. And they're using that again now. This is the ICC. This is a foreign body that is imposing its standards and its rules on the Philippines. And it's not the Philippine judicial system is parang surrendering to a foreign power. Ganyan. And then second, the other narrative is kawawa naman si Duterte. He is old. He's 79. He's turning 80. His health is failing, and then you're bringing him out of the country, and you did not give him due process. So those are the two dominant narratives that I'm seeing. How that will be handled by the administration bears watching. Because we've also seen that Marcos has been very soft, not very firm, not very decisive. He makes instances and situations decide for him. So parang ang tagal, di ba? And even insofar as the ICC is concerned, the messaging and the rhetoric was shifting. Years ago, he would say, "No, we will not let the ICC in. We will not cooperate with the ICC." And then nag-shift siya, nag-soften siya, and then now we will cooperate with the Interpol. You cannot win 2025 or 2028.
Yeah.
You are indecisive.
Yeah.
You have to be firmer, and that is where Duterte has the upper hand, because he has an iron fist. He gets what he wants. He knows what he wants. Marcos is not sure.
Yeah.
He lets other people, probably the First Lady, decide for him. And I don't know if he even has a tight circle of political advisors who are savvy enough and will be able to give him good advice.
Yeah.
This is the irony again, right? This is actually opportunity in many ways for a strong leader to set the tone. You said there's been one statement, not a press conference. You do it, you own it.
Yeah.
And
go big or go home.
And
You can't
justice is fantastic, right? In many ways, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. actually benefits from carrying out justice. It's incredible. It's actually a great. So there is opportunity. Look again at the way the world is playing out. Given that the power structures have turned upside down, the United States, for the very first time, voted against a strong principle of sovereign, that a sovereign nation should not be invading another country. This is 2 weeks ago. The U.S. voted with, this is on whether Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
A blatant lie that Ukraine was at fault.
Yeah.
Anyway, when they did that, a basic tenet is that a nation cannot just go grab someone else's
UN
land.
Charter.
So it's a brave new world. The Philippines, Mexico, Canada, countries can now actually, it's a time of opportunity in that sense.
Right.
And I hope our government recognizes that.
Where do we stand? Imagine that. A Marcos first being the champion of the international rules-based order in the West Philippine Sea.
Isn't that incredible?
And now, his administration, not him yet, kasi hindi pa siya humaharap sa kahit kanino sa media. Doon pa lang siya sa Malacanang meetings the whole day, upholding the idea of accountability.
The end of impunity.
At least in Duterte's drug war. Chay,
Let's see.
Herbie,
What
Pia,
happened?
final thoughts before we wrap up? Herbie? Our eyes and ears on the ground in Mindanao.
Well, Duterte is on uncharted territory. And, ang position natin is we're just observing. But, again, ang feeling ng marami, and if you're on the side of right, then you just hope that this is really a step towards justice and accountability. Because during his administration, we haven't seen any. He was exempted. He was the champion of impunity.
Chay?
I will again put things in perspective. Parang it's very, very important that in this whole thing, we don't get swayed by the emotions and the drama that is expected from the Duterte camp. Sabi nung isang drug victim, drug war EJK family victim, sabi niya, katiting lang yan sa ginawa mo sa amin na sinira mo ang aming buhay at hanap buhay dahil sa iyong peking war on drugs. Wala akong karapatan na kumuha ng buhay ng iba kasi Diyos lang ang may karapatan. Kaya sa ginawa mo, maniningil ang taong bayan, lalo na kaming mga pamilya na mga naging biktima. So in English, that is nothing compared to what you did to us. You destroyed our lives and livelihood because of your fake war on drugs. You have no right to take another person's life. Only God has that right. Because of what you have done, the people will demand justice, especially we, the families of the victims. They're the ones who need our support, and as journalists, I think we need to continue covering them and tracking their stories.
Pia?
For me, because Ms. Chay spoke earlier of two narratives that the Duterte camp are saying, and there's a third narrative that I have heard, and that is people saying that yung drug war naman was for the Philippines' own good.
Yeah.
He did this out of goodness, out of a sense of mission, that the Philippines was better off with this drug war, therefore this is an unjust process. So to that, I would say na the fact that there's an arrest warrant, even if hindi pa siya, convicted, this is recognition from a body, right, that drug war was a crime against humanity, that there were violations, and now they want to hold someone accountable for it. So that should at least, diba, parang dispel that notion na it was for the good of the Philippines. It was not. It was a violation, and now someone has to answer for it.
Maria?
This is historic. At a time when the biggest question globally is whether the international rules-based order still exists. You have war in Ukraine, an invasion, and then you have the United States flipping upside down. A great time of uncertainty. You have Gaza and the tens of thousands killed in Gaza. Again, a time of impunity. They've called this time the age of impunity. And I have to say, we've all been looking for good news. The Philippines is standing up, saying we will stand for rule of law. We will stop the impunity. Oh my gosh. Under the administration of President Marcos Jr.
Yeah.
I think that's the irony of it is just fascinatingly wonderful.
Yeah. That has been the end of this discussion. Keep it on Rappler. Again, meron kaming live updates page. Makita nyo doon yung updates from the ground, from the Duterte camp. They've been saying a lot of things since this morning. Magkakaroon din ng update doon kung magsalita na yung Marcos administration when they do finally have something to say, either through the PCO or through the President himself. Thank you to my panel for joining me tonight. It was in November 2024, during a House hearing, that Rodrigo Duterte egged on the International Criminal Court to hurry up and arrest him before he dies. Today is March 11, 2025, and earlier today, Rodrigo Duterte was arrested at the NAIA Airport, or the Ninoy Aquino International Airport in Manila, over that warrant issued by the ICC. Thank you, Herbie. Thank you, Chay, Pia, Maria. Thank you, Kaloy, Father Flavi, Laila de Lima. Lian and Jairo are still in Villamor. And thank you all for watching. This has been Rappler's special coverage, The Arrest of Rodrigo Duterte. I'm Bea Cupin. Thank you for watching.